Welcome back to another episode of Bleav in the Broncos on the Bleav Network, sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook, your home for everything sports betting. I am Patrick Chiotti. Along with me is my co-host, as always, Bri Maestas. Bri, good to see you. How are you doing? Did you survive the Broncos-Raiders game?
Yeah, I think I survived. It wasn't the heart attack on a plate that we've been served for the majority of this year. And I think it was finally due for a game of that capacity. I think that's what I had available for emotional energy when it comes to this Broncos team. But it's funny, you have these conversations of why is it so stressful? Well, the Broncos are winning. 11-2 sounds good, and no matter how you spin it. And I think that's what's carrying me through this last quarter of the season. Only 4 games left. I cannot believe we're at that point, but doing well, prepping for the holidays, all the fun times that come along with that, but enjoying some December football to go alongside.
Bri, they only won by 7 points, Bri. they barely beat the 2-win Las Vegas Raiders.
Garbage time field goals.
My goodness, I can't believe it. We've got a lot to talk about in this episode, but we're going to break down the victory over the Raiders. The Broncos have won 10 games in a row. They currently sit at the number 1 seed in the AFC. What are they going to say about us now? Well, they're going to say that the offense was uninspiring, that the pass game was yucky, that this team is overrated. If it wasn't for Marvin Mims, this team is barely squeaking by. I say those things, Bri, because that seems to be what certain members of the media are saying about this Broncos team.
Okay.
Now, I went back and I watched the game again a couple of times. I don't think the pass game was yucky. I think that this was Sean Payton saying, I learned my lesson from that Thursday night. That game was yucky. This game was not yucky. Lots of concepts going for the sticks, just trying to control the game. And that's like, have we watched any of like Bill Parcells from the past? Did we watch any of those teams where we're just running the ball and passing for first downs and just controlling the clock and controlling the game? Like, the Broncos nearly doubled. They were like 30 seconds off. Nearly doubled time of possession. Almost 40 minutes of the game was in the Broncos' hands. 3 drives that all ended in scores of nearly 9 minutes. 9 minutes, and all of those drives, Bri, 80-plus yards. Bo Nix, 31 for 38, 200 and some yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, had a rushing touchdown. Game manager, sure. They won the game. What was your biggest takeaway from this victory and the offense's performance?
Well, I think it's important to look at any divisional matchup in the AFC West as an important game. I think what gets lost when the Raiders are underperforming at 2-11 now is that you start solidifying your identity in the rankings. And I think that's what the Broncos were aiming to do. And I got into this argument yesterday of if it was a convincing or dominating win. And I think we get caught up in these ideals. And you said it, right? Uninspiring offense. Like, where does that line up when we talk about a team continuously winning and 1-score games that a garbage time score by the Raiders somehow takes it out of being a convincing win? Like, this matchup was a contrast in styles. And I think Denver really has become a team where they're able to be more disciplined and have more late game poise. And the Raiders are, kind of having this terrible slough of they really can't get anything done. And what I really loved was the opportunity for Sean Payton to show that he had a game plan. And a lot of that was, lost in the idea of going up against one of the better defenders in the NFL. I loved how they handled Max Crosby because he can be an absolute game wrecker, and he didn't take over the afternoon. Like my big takeaway is they do exactly what they need to do to win. Why is that not enough? They aren't playing isolated football. They're not leaving it up to just Bo Nix. They aren't having to lean heavily on a run game that takes away the ability to be explosive on offense. So when you play clean football and you get the job done, I don't understand really the concept of it being like, yes, but it wasn't in a dominating fashion. This team should be burying the Raiders. Absolutely. There's still improvements to be made, but what I can't get on board with is trying to put an asterisk next to every one of these 10 wins in a row and say that they didn't earn them in some form or fashion. Like, luck doesn't really come into play. You can talk about, the ball bouncing a certain way, momentum and calls and giving the win to the team simply because they got lucky. But what the Broncos are continuously doing is, in any face of adversity, they're finding a way to outmatch their opponent. And that's what we saw against the Raiders. True tests to be had. I think you can find any game this year with any team in any matchup and say, wow, I think they really could have pulled it off somewhere or the other. Like, the amount of upsets that have been happening, they haven't been happening to the Broncos. And I think that counts for something.
What? Like, if this wasn't a dominating win, I'm sorry. If you are a coach, like, it's one thing being an analyst and like viewing the game from that perspective of the fan, if you are a coach and you watched this game and you said, this game is gross. This game's yucky. Are you okay? Because that was fantastic football. The way that they dominated the game, in the run game, RJ Harvey averaging 4.4 yards carry, finally getting like the J.K. Dobbins workload, 17 carries, right, 20 touches overall. So that's the workhorse carry, right?
Yeah.
And he did fantastic. He was like, I thought that this was by far and away his best game as a pro. But watching Bo Nix operate this offense, like, it's just anything he does is so under the microscope because it's him, right? And it's like when he's taking deep shots downfield and they're not connecting, it's, oh, well, see, they're just not, he doesn't trust Bo Nix. He doesn't want him to operate the offense correctly. They just want to go, bombs over Baghdad. It's fine. It's fine. But then when he does operate the offense and he's going through his reads and he's making throws in rhythm and he's getting first downs and they're sustaining drives and then scoring on those drives, it's, oh, well, that was boring. I don't like that. Pick a lane. Pick a lane. I don't want to hear about QBR. I don't want to hear about EPA. I don't want to hear about CPOE, JIZ. I don't want to care. I don't care about any of the stupid metrics that you are using to try and knock this guy down. Watch the damn game as a coach. This guy operated the offense to perfection. We saw him standing in the pocket, completely calm. What was the big knock on him, Bri? What was the big knock on him early in the season? Well, he's too skittish. His footwork. Oh, he's just trying to bail out of the pocket. Oh, he's got a clean. Why is he running so much? Well, now he's standing in the pocket and he's making throws, and you're still complaining. So let's just be honest with ourselves. You don't like the guy. I don't know what he did to you. That's fine. But don't sit here and say that they're playing boring football. This is Sean Payton football. Bri, the defense gave up, 10 points late. The bogus field goal at the end. I could not believe that. The bogus field goal at the end. It's fine. The penalty was warranted. I'll say that. I'll be the first one to say that. The penalty was warranted. But blaming 10 garbage time points on a boring offense and saying Marvin Mims gave them the victory for this game, that's a little disingenuous. What did you like from the Broncos defense in this game? What didn't you like from the Broncos defense in this game?
Well, I think it's intriguing when you talk about the confidence dipping on this Denver Broncos defense, because I don't think they've necessarily slowed down. I think the absence of Patrick Surtain made them have to adjust in a way that him coming back, I don't think is an add two on top and everything else just gets better. I think that there had to be some shifting and some components there. The razor sharp edge that we saw during the peak in that streak, it's not as dominant as the last couple of weeks. And I think that's where that leads to people having these emotional reactions. Like, here we go, they're going to slide off the radar like they do every single year. And I think it's a combination of fatigue and its circumstance. I think teams have had an opportunity to study what the Broncos are doing, understand what Vance Joseph likes to do, and there needs to be maybe a little bit of a mix up there, but I don't want them to go too far away from what has worked in the past. I think we've talked about it ad nauseum, and anybody who watches the show is going to say oh my God, again. But if turnovers were happening, I think that the conversation really just doesn't exist here, because what the front seven is doing, what they're being able to be as an aggressive unit, really isolating in space. I think it's important to note that opponents are not going to be able to overcome that in most circumstances. And then with the offense getting hot, then you're not relying solely on the defense. I know that Texans are really fun to watch as a defense, but the way in which the narrative shifts with the Broncos, I think, has to be a tie-in in a lot of things. I don't think a lot of people were anticipating this team being this good. I don't think a lot of people were foreshadowing 11-2 at this point in the season. So I think it's honestly a recalibration point for this defense. Get better at the basics and make sure that those don't go through the floor, like your fundamentals and tackling and angles and what have you. But really grab a couple of interceptions, the ones that hit you right in the chest. And I think that changes the conversation entirely, because the unit has earned the respect. And I think that their ability to adapt week in and week out is strong. I think other defenses within the league, or just in the AFC in general, would collapse at this kind of moment. And they're not doing that. There's just a little bit of a hiccup. I honestly have faith that Vance Joseph can figure out, what may be plaguing them. But I think it's just a matchup thing, because what they were able to do, we didn't talk about it and we didn't get to have the conversation of it in a full throttle capacity, but who are they facing in week 15 against the Packers, right? A Micah Parsons. I'm not going to compare Parsons to Crosby because their games are wildly different, but being game disruptors is what their entire identity is built around. And so the opportunity that you have with, Sean Payton having to game plan against that, our defense can function in the same exact way, right? How are you game planning where you're putting your defense at an advantage? Time of possession, as you mentioned, with 8-minute plus drives, is how you're able to combat what the Packers are going to throw at you, and then able to shift the pressure on the defense from having to carry game-winning stops on their shoulders. The more you find synergy in your three phases of football, which that Marvin Mims special teams touchdown really comes into play there, you're taking pressure off of your offense. So I think the defense is just finding their stride. They're not going to be, and you shouldn't be counting on them to rack up the wins for you. And I'm sorry for being all over the place when it comes to this, but if you're saying it's a defense problem, I think you're just not understanding how it works week in and week out. You're not expecting them to go in and hold Jordan Love to 130 yards of offense, or a callback to the Aaron Rodgers Packers game where it was 77 yards. It's not it's kind of unheard of. This isn't the 2015 defense, but also they had a high rate of interceptions. If that falls into place, it's a different story.
Yeah, and I think I feel like we've been like clamoring for the turnovers for quite some time now. We've
Weekly.
been, like every week it's like, is this the week? Is this when it's going to happen? I think that the defense is still producing pressures at a really high rate. They're still getting home to the quarterback. It's not, it's not Nick Bonito as much. It's more so the Malcolm Roaches, the John Franklin Myers. It's those guys in the middle that are just pushing the pocket in and closing everything down. Or
just bullying. I love it.
Yeah. And I have concerns about Mr. Bonito, and they're valid concerns. But I still think that he's a great pass rusher. I still think that he's got one of the best get-offs in the league. Him and Cooper, their get-offs are ridiculous. So much so that we're still seeing some of those like Von Miller offsides penalties where
it's timed really well.
It's timed really well. NFL officiating, let's look at the tackles, please. If they're jumping early, we're jumping. Nick Bonito got a penalty. The penalty that he got in the game against the Raiders, I felt like it wasn't one that was warranted. He was looking at the play clock. As soon as the play clock hit 0, he jumped. And they called him for offsides. And I was like, I don't like that one. But I will say, Bri, last thing before we move on to the Packers is one thing that I do like is this team is cleaning up the penalties. They had less, especially on the offensive side, less like drive killing penalties. They had 2 delay games that Sean Payton said they took them on purpose, and I will stand by him, Coach. It was a good one to set up the Knicks rushing touchdown. They went from like the 2 to the 7, and it kind of gave Bo some more room to operate the quarterback draw. And then the other one was the field goal where they were trying to get them offsides with the hand movement. Big brain. Loved that. But like other than that, no real like drive killing, not, holdings, none of those penalties. So the game's cleaning up a little bit. Still on the defensive side, you got to clean some stuff up. But I think that this defense overall, they're suffocating. They're still so suffocating. Hufunga's flying around. It's nice to have Pat back. Riley Moss is playing a lot cleaner as of late. They're going to give up catches. I do wish, I want the run defense to really be dialed in for this game, because this team is going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball really hard. Over 100 rushing yards the last 3 games. One of them being over 120 rushing yards in games. So Denver's really got to keep the defensive prowess up. But I want to see Nick Bonito continue to grow as an edge defender. And for those of you who are listening, there's a strict difference between just being a pass rusher and being an edge defender. Von Miller, edge defender. That guy could set an edge like no other. DeMarcus Ware, edge defender. That guy could set an edge like no other. Jonathan Cooper is a great edge defender. Dondre Tillman is a great edge defender. I'd put Jonah Ellis in there. He's a pretty good edge defender as well. Nick Bonito, we got to work on it. Right now, he's getting way too deep downfield, and his get off is great, but we got to hit the corner, and we got to hit the corner better. He's just getting too deep downfield, and when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love, he's going to step up in the pocket and he's going to go. So that's got to be a point of emphasis this week. You get away.
You have to take advantage of that tackle on an island.
Yep, absolutely. And it's just like if he can add like 1 or 2 more moves to his bag, I think it's a different conversation. Bri, Green Bay comes in. Their defense right now, 5th in yards per game, 6th in points per game allowed, and 5th in yards per play. That means 5th lowest yards per game, 5th lowest yards per play, and 6th lowest points per game. Over the last 3 games, Bri, however, this team, this defense has allowed 270 yards over the last 3 games, 17 points per game, 4.6 yards per play, 154 passing yards average over the last 3 games, 115 rushing yards against over the last 3 games, averaging 3 sacks and 14 pressures over that stretch. But this defense is allowing 2.7 explosive runs per game over the last 3. So, Bri, my question to you is, what does the Broncos offense need to do in this game to dominate a good opponent?
And they finally have to hit that benchmark, right? Because this is a game that has like playoff implications. It's playoffs in December. You don't want Green Bay heating up Bo Nix, I think, is the one opportune thing you want to avoid. So what is that offensive line doing? And I think they're pretty good in the run, right? So if you get the ground game going, and that includes Bo Nix, and I think that allows everything else to really open up. I'm worried about them trending towards being more one-dimensional. And so I think when that happens, it's not just the uninspiring football and the uninspiring offense that I think people have a complaint with, but I think it's when the Packers defense becomes a problem. So balance is going to be really important. Bo Nix's structure, where he thrives, allowing there to be, the emphasis on control of his game. And I think he's really coming to that peak prowess these last couple of games. So we're going to see Bo Nix, really have the best ability to be successful. But I think the Packers are going to try to unsettle him. I think they're going to mix up coverages, and I think they're going to overload, those protection points that are going to force the hesitation. If you make him uncomfortable, Nix isn't going to think straight. He's maybe not going to react straight. He's going to get back to the uncomfortability and the non-foundational work. But I feel like Bo Nix has the ability to counterbalance that, right? Where's your decision making? Are you stepping up in the pocket? You already talked about, limiting the scrambling, but sometimes it's appropriate to do so. And oftentimes it's within like a finger's grasp of grabbing an ankle, where defenses seem to thrive and taking down quarterbacks who are really good at scrambling. And I think Bo Nix falls into that category. So I think it's going to be tough, because you're going to find the opportunity where pressures are going to be tough. And you just gave us the stat that gives me a little bit of pause here, because I think if you keep him upright, we've seen some of the throws he's been able to make. And I think if you build the momentum and the tempo there, it's going to be the answers to the quick game, what we've wanted to see. Now, if it's a dominating win, I'm not sure what that benchmark is. Is it score? Is it, control of everything that's positive in the Broncos direction? Possibly. But I think that it is protecting Nix as best as possible and letting him play his game. Now, his game doesn't have to be carrying the team on his back. Sometimes it's doing exactly what Sean Payton has prescribed and executing that to the best of his ability. And I think that's where there becomes this emphasis of, he's an okay game manager. A win is a win. And against this Packers team, it's going to be definitive.
Well, who also was a game manager? Weird.
Say it.
It's almost like good quarterbacks manage the game, and then they end up winning the game.
He's a pretty winning quarterback for his first 2 seasons.
He's won a lot of games. He's won a lot of games. What's that? 21 wins now over 2 seasons?
Correct.
Now, QB wins is not a real stat. Okay. Football is a team game. But for a guy who a lot of people said was the worst first round pick out of that crop, he's doing pretty good. He's doing pretty good. I'm right there with you, Bri. I think that We saw Sean use his we saw Sean call plays to have Bo use his legs, especially down in the red zone. I think that's the big one is like, yeah, you want your quarterback to throw touchdowns. That's fantastic. But like, let's use his athleticism. If teams understand that you're going to want to throw the ball down in the red zone, hey, run the damn ball. I think he's got the opportunity. He's playing good outside of the Bobby Wagner interception. We're playing really clean football. He's still suffering from some iffy wide receiver play. Troy Franklin has forgotten how to catch football. And Cortland Sutton is good for probably 1 to 2 misses a game. That makes it tough. But the thing that I loved about watching this offense, especially in the last game, that gives me hope against this defense is Bo Nix was evading Max Crosby at an elite level. There were a couple times where he was looking Crosby dead in the eyes and got out of it and made a play. And he's getting support from some unlikely cast members. Adam Troutman had a couple of really good catches in that game. Evan Ingram is starting to become a little bit more reliable every week. Pat Bryant, my goodness, for another guy that a lot of people said, why did they take this guy? This guy, I had him as 272nd on my big board. Why are they taking him in the 3rd round? Traits. That's why.
Don't forget Adam Prentice.
I can't forget the fullest back, Adam Prentice. It just goes back to like, what game were you watching? If you came away uninspired from that team, 11 different players Bo threw to. My goodness, this is just
because they want an 85-yard bomb to the end zone.
Like, not every play has to be a 60-yard touchdown that traveled 50 yards in the air. It doesn't, like, what football are you wanting to see? My goodness.
Definitely not good trench play, I can tell you.
No, geez. But this defense, Bri, this Packers defense has some really good pieces. And Micah Parsons is obviously going to be the focus for this team. But the Broncos defense, I think, they have got to get pressure on Jordan Love. I didn't feel like the edge play for Denver put enough pressure on Geno. I feel like it was more the interior putting pressure on him. That has to change this week. You've got to be able to force Jordan Love into really iffy situations, and we cannot let him use his legs. Like you've got to be able to keep him contained in the pocket, force him up, not out. Just thought of, I think you should leave.
Well, how much of it, Pat, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I am really curious about how much of it in a coach's mind would you relegate to it being the opponent that you're facing? Like, I know we want to be dominant and forceful week in and week out, but 17 games is a long regular season. And I think at some point you say, do we really need to throw the entire barn at a Geno Smith and Raiders team?
No.
And I feel like that changes whether consciously or subconsciously when it comes to a quarterback of caliber, when it comes to Jordan Love. Now, I think I was arguing off camera, not arguing, you weren't trying to refute my claims, but Jordan Love, I think, is a pretty talented quarterback who can get things done, but he's also a roller coaster. So how much of the emphasis is on what version of Jordan Love shows up on Sunday?
I think it's everything. It's everything for the Packers offense. Like I said, this guy under pressure, he struggles under pressure. Now, 1 touchdown, 1 interception under pressure, but he's 30th in QB, since we're using QBR. He's 30th in QBR when under pressure. He's 30th in yards per game under pressure, and like 25th in yards per play when under pressure. So he doesn't do too well under pressure. Now, I think some of the blitz looks that Vance Joseph brings, especially like some of the ones that he showed against Geno, it's tough. Like they were bringing, you're bringing Singleton and then you're bringing like Hufanga right behind him. And that's like, it's terrifying. You can just see Hufanga's hair. You can't even tell whose hair it is. Singleton's hair is, but I think if Vance can dial up some of those unique pressure packages, and just like make sure that we're keeping gap integrity and not, like I talked about Nick Bonito getting too deep in his pass rush. That's got to be one of those areas where we can't get too deep this week because we can't allow him that opportunity to step up. So we really have to, step up and through that gap. We really have to make sure that we're not giving him those lanes. If he's going to escape the pocket, he's going to have to find a different way. But he's going to have 2-3 guys right in his grill every time. And I think just putting the pressure on him is going to be absolute key. We know that he's going to try and go deep. So the corners have to play really disciplined football. You can't be too grabby. This team is going to get a lot of calls, but this team is also a really good. They're really good in the run game. They're really solid. Their receivers can block as well. I mean, this is a team that you just don't want to allow them the opportunity to stay in this game. So if you can be efficient on offense, especially in the first half, like they were against Vegas, just keep those long drives going. We don't have to go deep every time on third down. Let's just get to the sticks and just keep moving the ball, keep driving downfield. I think that they'll be in a good position. But this is going to be a tough game. And I think that if you let Jordan Love stay in this game, he's going to make some plays. So you got to be able to take him out of it.
And I think I was concerned too, is that Jordan Love I was just looking it up to confirm, but he's been kind of averaging around that 20-25 yard mark for rushing yards, which means that you're just not going to have to worry about the Broncos run defense does its job. If it's more about letting up to where he's able to air it out, I think that's when it becomes a problem, because that's the whole idea of a second level of defense when it comes to your secondary. Why leave it to chance?
Yeah, exactly. Bri, let's get into some FanDuel fan bets. Some quick bets for you to make this weekend when you're watching the game. Thanks to our sponsors, FanDuel. Bri, let's start with the over/under. The Broncos open this game as 2.5-point dogs against the Packers at home. Crazy. Broncos haven't lost a game at home this season. Very disrespectful. Over/under is set at 42.5. Bri, let's start there. Over/under 42.5. What are you going with?
I Bleav I have it right there, 21-20. So under. We're going to go on the under. I think it's going to be another heart attack on a plate.
Okay. 21-20 is your Broncos?
Yep, 21-20 Broncos. I cannot deal with the disrespect of the home underdogs, specifically because the Broncos have the upper hand when it just comes to winning in Mile High against the Packers. So I think that there's a lot of, but I know the NFL can go either way and it can right the wrong and have some regression back to the mean. I just don't think this is the time to do so.
I'm going to go with
especially because I'm taking my family. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm going to go with the over. I'm going to go 27-21 Broncos. I think that this is a prime opportunity for the offense to show that they're for real. Keep getting RJ Harvey involved in the offense, and you'll see big things. And that takes us to our next one, Bri.
Ooh.
First, a player to score 2 or more touchdowns. Last week, RJ Harvey scored 2 touchdowns. Wait, is that right? No. The Commanders game, he scored 2 touchdowns. Excuse me. But
still counts.
RJ Harvey plus 950 to score 2 or more touchdowns. Are you taking that bet?
No, it's a little rich for my blood, and I think we're still trying to see if RJ Harvey can be consistent. Now watch it happen, and everyone can make fun of me. Clip this section right here, right now, that shows that I have no faith. But when it comes to bold predictions and prop bets like that, of course you would hope that would be the case, especially if that's what the Broncos choose to do when their offensive strategy comes to fruition. But I could definitely see it being a RJ Harvey rushing and receiving touchdown, as they seem to favor him quite a bit when it comes to red zone and 2-minute drills. So I'm gonna not take it, but I'm telling you why it could happen.
Okay. Here's a fun one. Romeo Doubs, anytime touchdown, plus 210.
Yeah, I drafted him in my fantasy team for a reason. I think that's the weapon of choice, and he's just really good at what he does. Now, is it going to be very hot or very cold sometimes? Sure. But I think that you are going to want to take deep shots to just about every weapon that you have down there, and Doubs is probably going to be good for at least a touchdown.
I like it. That is going to do it for this episode of Bleav in Broncos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Make sure that you catch us on Bleav TV as well. Follow us on social media at Bri Maces 303, at Patrick Coyote. Follow at Bleav Network as well. Special thank you to our sponsors, FanDuel Sportsbook. And we will see you next time after this game. Broncos, Packers, in Mile High. Oof. We should also say Packers are 1-7 when playing in Mile High. They don't do well in the elevation, folks.
And the home team is like 13. We're not cursing. We're just talking about trends.
Let's not curse it. Yes. The last one of my buddies tagged me in a tweet yesterday. The last time the Broncos lost to the Packers in Mile High was the Brett Favre overtime bomb over Dre Bly. And I was like, Jay Cutler at quarterback, Brandon Marshall is a wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. This was ages ago. What are we talking about?
Is your buddy our Packers fan? Is he?
He is. Yes, he's a fellow coach at Lincoln.
It's like, why would you bring that up?
I was like, buddy, this was pre-Peyton Manning era.
I was still in high school, man. What are we doing?
So I was a freshman in high school. It's crazy. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for listening, and go Broncos.
Go Broncos.